Hey guys, Wyatt Claypool here. Based on what's been leaking out of the trade negotiations between the US and Canada, it doesn't sound like Prime Minister Mark Carney and the Liberals are really that committed to their former elbows up positions. I want to break down one of the details from these leaks for you today and discuss why it's so bad for the country. I think we should trade as much as possible with the United States. It makes both countries better if you are able to purchase products from one side of the border that are cheaper there than they are on your side of the border. But the way that Mark Carney and the Liberals are going about this is entirely wrong. They portrayed themselves as being people who are going to stand up for Canada and diversify our trade around the world, and that's not happening. But anyways, before I get into it, guys, I just quickly want to remind you, if you like the channel, make sure to drop a like on the video. It really helps us in the algorithm. Leave a comment on what you think about the topic of the day. And if you are not yet a subscriber to the channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button so my videos will pop up in your feed more often. Anyways, I just want to talk quickly about this post that Jeff Russ put up, and then I want to discuss a little bit more about the article that it came from. It's from an Economist article. And so Jeff Russ here quotes one line in the article that says, quote, people briefed on the negotiations say the US, in the United States, would be guaranteed first right of refusal on Canadian resources. Jeff Russ then goes on to say himself, I don't even know what to say anymore. The Liberals ran in a whole campaign on breaking with the US and seeking more economic independence. Then they give the White House a veto on trade with the world. I would love to hear what the elbows up shills have to say about this. And he's right. It's a little bit of a backwards term, the first right of refusal. But basically, what they are giving to the US, and this has been stated in the article that it's guaranteed. I will pull it up so you can see. It says, people briefed on the negotiations say the United States would be guaranteed first right of refusal on Canadian resources. This is quite a prize at a time when countries around the world are scrambling to line up their supplies. Yeah, so effectively, the US gets to get first bidding rights on anything that Canada is planning on exporting. So they get to decide whether we have to basically go to them first in order to see if there's anyone who wants their supplies for a price that they negotiate before we are allowed looking around the international scene. This is going to slow down Canada diversifying its trade because you must go and negotiate with the US before you try and develop new markets. This is quite literally the opposite of what Mark Carney and the Liberals had run on in 2025's federal election. Again, the whole idea that Mark Carney ran on was that we're too reliant on the United States. They're threatening our sovereignty. And so we're going to go off to Asia, Europe, Africa, Australia, Japan, and we're going to go see if we can do some trade with them instead. And now, already before a deal signed, it has already been guaranteed that the US is going to, like our oil and gas industry, get way more, get first dibs on absolutely everything. And we're not going to actually have a open competition for our resources first. They get to purchase them at market values, at whatever market value we agree to before. And if they refuse, then you can go try and get a higher price elsewhere. But we first must go and ask them if they want it. I don't even know what to say about that. It's just patently absurd, and everyone who is pushing the yellows up narrative should be criticizing him right now. But I know they're not. None of these people are ever going to come to Mark Carney and say, well, why are you letting Trump and the Americans eat your lunch? And I was just surveying some of the articles on the trade negotiations between Mark Carney and Donald Trump just a bit ago. And all of the articles that are from more pro-liberal outlets, and it's totally fine for an outlet to be more pro-liberal. I'm more pro-conservative, obviously. They just keep talking about how there's progress in the deals. Oh my goodness, I'm just like coughing all over myself right now. But they're just talking about the idea that, progress is being made. They're close. They're going to try and close the deal at the G7 when Trump is in Alberta. But no mention of the right of first refusal, which is, kind of a big deal in shaping this agreement. It is effectively the previous agreement, but worse for Canada. And this is being done by the people who were attacking the conservatives for being too soft on the Americans. My goodness. It annoys me to no end. Anyways, I do want to talk about some other stuff that's kind of related to this, and that is Bill C2. I'm not sure if you guys have seen Bill C2, but it is the Liberals' new border bill. It's 150 pages right here, Bill C2, an act respecting certain measures related to the security of the border between Canada and the United States and respecting the other related security measures. And I will say, first off, a lot of stuff in this bill is perfectly fine. It is making things like the it's not byproducts, but it's like the components of fentanyl, making those illegal substances or controlled substances. So you can't just take the supplies to make fentanyl over the border and say, well, it's not fentanyl yet, so you can't stop me. They can stop people with the precursors to fentanyl, and that they can schedule that as a controlled, or they can make that a controlled substance and charge someone for trying to move over the border with it, or from trying to import it who is not allowed to have it. That's good. There's some other good stuff about trying to actually tighten up patrols, increasing screenings at the border. There's absolutely some fine stuff in the bill. At the same time, there are things in the bill that don't really have anything to do with border security. Like, I guess it does, but I'll just get to it. They can read your mail now. Apparently, any mail coming in from outside the country into Canada can now just be read through, opened up. They can do whatever they want with it. I don't know why we need this for border security. Like, I understand the idea. You don't want people like shipping in fentanyl precursors or trying to, send weapons over the border through the mail. But I would say that how about we first start to try and enforce the law in our own country, getting rid of things like Bill C-75, the soft on crime bail reform law that the Liberals passed under Justin Trudeau. Maybe we should get rid of that. And Bill C-5, which lowers sentencing for people carrying illegal handguns, like not just a model of handgun the Liberals are trying to ban, but like an actual illegally obtained handgun. We let those people off easy, but now we're going to open your mail before doing the basics of law enforcement. Some other things about the bill, we are going to have I'll just read this part. So this is the part about the mail. It says, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, RCMP, and the Canadian Security Intelligence Service, CSIS, it has expanded abilities to intercept and search communications, including mail, to address security threats. And what people also interpreted that to mean is that they would be able to, at the border, be able to request that you open up your phone and download its contents to know who you've been communicating with and whatnot. Could you catch bad guys this way? Sure. Also, bad guys don't follow the law, and they are going to be able to find ways around this, and it's going to turn into a program where you're just going to be reading random people's mail and opening their packages. Another aspect of Bill C2 that is kind of concerning, I can see the merits behind it, but I can also see a lot of demerits behind it. They are now going to cap all cash transactions under over $10,000. If you make a $10,000 donation somewhere in cash, you try and purchase something for $10,000 in cash, like a car, you can no longer do that. Or at least you have to have the whole thing fingerprinted, and you have to have basically a government bureaucrat sign off on it being legal before you can transact that way. And I understand criminals deal in cash. It's not traceable. It's literally just a physical object you can hand somebody. It's not digital in any way. But a lot of people are, I would say, rightfully concerned that by putting such a low cap on it of $10,000, you are eventually going to be able to move into the idea that all cash is actually dangerous. There's potential for money laundering with cash. So we have to go to pure digital currency, because Mark Carney, throughout his career, has been a big proponent of central bank digital currency, CBDCs. He has been quoted in many articles on this topic, to the point where other people who were in charge of central banks, because he was usually sounding off about this when he was the head of the Central Bank of England, They would even react to his opinions on CBDCs as if it's like very odd because his opinions are extremely maximalist on CBDCs. He thinks they're fantastic. And people are thinking that this aspect of Bill C2 is a very easy way of putting his foot in the door and justifying digital currencies because we got to crack down on money laundering. Again, I go back to Bill C-75 and Bill 5 and his allowance of decriminalization of drugs around the country. Why do we need extra security measures around reading people's mail and restricting their abilities to use cash when we're not even keeping the criminals on our own streets committing crimes in front of police officers locked up for more than 24 hours? We should try and get that done first before we start increasing these other measures which allow the government to act like a police state and like invade your own privacy, slow you down at the border to download your phone and all this other stuff. I think we should probably do the basics and then we can ratchet it up from there if we still have a rampant crime problem. I really don't think we'll have a rampant crime problem if we just upgraded sentencing and held people if they are repeat offenders or violent offenders. That's all you need to do. There's this lie that, mass incarceration in the 90s and early 2000s didn't do anything, but it just put a lot of people into prison. It actually worked incredibly well. Because if someone commits a crime and you lock them up and then they get out and they commit another crime and you lock them up harder, it turns out that causes less crime because there are more criminals, the people who commit crime in prison rather than out on the streets. There's this asinine argument I sometimes hear from people where they'll say, well, locking people up doesn't deter other people from committing crime. It's like, when did I care about deterring other people from committing crimes by locking up another criminal? You lock up criminals, and part of my background is research in crime during my master's degree. The point of locking up criminals is to lock up that particular criminal. I'm not locking up Dave for a violent offense because it's going to dissuade Bill from committing a violent offense. I'm locking up Dave to lock up Dave. And if Bill's stupid enough to also commit a violent offense, we'll lock him up too. That's how you stop crime. You incapacitate criminals from being able to continue. I think it's like 3%, or no, it's not even 3%. It's like a couple hundred people in any given city, depends on the size. If it's a city like Calgary, it may only be like 100 or 70 people. Or I believe it was New York City. 300 people in New York City commit like over 30% of all of the shoplifting offenses, of all the retail thefts. If you incapacitate those people and you lock them up for years, those people will stop committing retail theft. Hopefully that's not a crazy concept for people to consume there. But anyways, now I just want to move on to one other thing because I found it funny and I knew it was like the stars aligned, and one of the dumbest people I know was citing one of the other dumbest people I know, and I needed to talk about it. So if you don't know who this person is, Guy Filica here is a pro-drug activist. He is a pro-safe injection site, safe supply activist. Apparently, he is a recovering drug addict who thinks that because there was all these safe injection sites when he was recovering and they personally helped him, that means the programs are good, and he is, let's not even say an advocate, he is a shill for them, even though he recovered way back when drugs were not nearly as hard as fentanyl and other things that can like permanently cripple you for life. He still pushes this stuff. He also had a rap sheet a mile long that he was able to get off of. He even made a joke of holding how long his rap sheet was that a lawyer got him off of, which included domestic battery and stuff like that. Likes to make a big joke about the fact he used to beat women, but whatever. This guy, for some reason, is in the mainstream in Canada, a respected member of the media who gets to sit on panels and talk about why we need to jam more drugs down people's throats using safe supply to fuel the drug trade. But this guy was sharing this video from Dr. Richard Wolfe, or it's not his account, but it's an account called @CommieTrash. Dr. David Wolfe, I'm not sure if you know this, is a communist, is a Marxist economist, which is an oxymoron. And Guy Filica says, we are all closer to becoming homeless than becoming a billionaire. It's true what they say. Without poverty and massive inequality, you can't have billionaires. I'm just going to play this clip, and you probably already know it's economically illiterate. What he just wrote there is illiterate. It demonstrates that either he's lying or maybe the drugs truly affected Guy Felica's brain this badly he doesn't even know that that is completely stupid. Sorry, are people in Africa poor because there are too many billionaires in their countries? Are people in China not as well off as the people in the United States because there are too many Chinese billionaires? Billionaires per capita are higher in the US than China. In fact, some countries in Scandinavia have the highest per capita billionaires, and yet they're better off than Canada and the United States. And by the way, Scandinavia is not socialist at all, in case someone tries to bring that up. They have lower corporate taxes than Canada and the US. But here's Dr. Richard Wolfe.
The 62 richest people in the world, most of whom are Americans, not all American, but most of whom are US citizens. The 62 richest people together have more wealth than the bottom half of the population of this planet.
Okay. And what does that mean? Did Elon Musk and did like Jeff Bezos go and rob people in Togo? Did they? They didn't. I can assure you that they have not gone to poor African countries and ripped money out of people's hands. This is, again, socialistic economic thinking that somebody is rich because they have taken from somebody else. No, in fact, if you actually trade with other people, you will be better off. And that's what these people have done. They're businessmen. They will give you a product that you pay for because you have made the calculus in your mind that object that they are selling to you will give you more value than the cash that you are handing them over. Or you're an irrational person, but most people are rational most of the time. And so when you go to a grocery store and purchase food, it's because that grocery store can supply you food better than you could supply yourself going out into the woods and foraging. But I guess this is an alien concept to Dr. Richard Wolfe.
Roughly 3.5 billion people. That's beyond obscene. I don't know. I don't have an adjective that captures this. But
it's called free markets. Though people, nobody is poor because of Elon Musk. There's nobody poor because of Jeff Bezos or like what's his noodle? I don't know. I was going to name another guy, like Michael Bloomberg is a fairly wealthy man. Nobody is poor because of Michael Bloomberg. How have these people stolen money from anyone? Again, there are societies where there are no billionaires, no rich people at all, and everyone's dirt poor because poverty, because income inequality has nothing to do. There's no causal relationship between people being poor and people being rich.
I can describe what it means. If you look at all the statistics of the World Health Organizations, the bottom half of our population are people who die way earlier than they need to. Why? Because their diets are no good, or they don't have enough food in the first place, or they can't get to a clinic to have little problems that are easily solved by modern medical methods taken care of.
So how is that a billionaire's fault? Was someone about to go into the clinic and get some like assistance and like Jeff Bezos steps in the way, Tim Cook steps in the way and says, stop right there. Give me that $5 you're about to use to go get a checkup. No, it's my $5. My $5 now. This is obviously stupid. Capitalism, free markets have risen more people out of poverty than anything else in human history. And he's going to be mad because it hasn't actually gotten everyone out of poverty. What, did the Soviet Union get people out of poverty? What did Mao's China cause people to stop starving? The only time people actually started doing better in China was when they started embracing limited capitalism so that people could actually, buy and sell goods without it all being rubber stamped every step of the way by the government and sold at a government store.
It's unspeakable what happens to the lower half. If we took half the wealth of the richest, and they would still be the richest, and made it available to the bottom half, it would transform their lives, literally. Now, there's no moral or ethical justification for this situation.
And that's not even true. Well, if you gave them the money, you just took half the richest people in the world's money and you gave it to the bottom half, their lives would be transformed. I'm like, no, businesses would collapse, the economy would fail, and those people would not have opportunities extended to them. But these people truly believe, these people who advocate extremely high taxes, believe that you can just simply minus off some money from them and give it to that guy. And that guy is proportionately better off because of that, even though there is nothing to actually keep generating that money year after year. And if you start making it harder for someone to actually hold on to the money that they earn, they're going to stop generating as much. And you're not going to be able to take as much money from that person and give it to another person. And so, how do you actually make people better off? Well, you actually have productivity. Productivity is the thing that nobody can do an end run around. You have to be productive, or you're not going to be able to have wealth in any way, shape, or form. People have a lot of money because their activities in life have been highly productive. Yes, there are some people who just inherited a lot of money, but that is a very dwindlingly small amount of individuals on this planet. You need productivity in countries. There's no way. Was Richard Wolfe going to take half of Elon Musk's money and then just give it to the country of, like, Togo is what I keep going back to. Equatorial Guinea is poor because of too many billionaires. Equatorial Guinea is poor because there's one dictator who takes all the oil and gas money and then doesn't actually let other people have their own ability to enter the market and work and trade their labor or even start their own businesses for resources. It's the government oil and gas company, and nobody else can get in the business. That's why people are broke. Anyways, well, that was annoying. Anyways, hopefully you don't mind when I respond to things that are kind of like not Canadian politics based, but they just annoy me. Guy Phillica gave me a perfect insertion point because I got to sideswipe him, then sideswipe Dr. Richard Wolfe, who I cannot stand at all. He is just one of the most open communists you'll see in academia, who, by the way, you'll even find people who are supposed to be like moderate liberals platforming people like Dr. Richard Wolfe. The man's a nutcase. He has literally excused deaths in the Soviet Union and China. And you'll have people like the Rational National, if you know that guy, just sitting there like, oh, wow, Dr. Richard Wolfe really speaking a lot of truth here. Speaking a lot of truth. The man's an idiot. I've seen someone rip apart his first doctoral dissertation because it was just full of nonsense, where he claims that the British Empire killed a bunch of people, killed 1.5 million people in Kenya, because at one point they estimated the population at 4 million, and then like a few decades later they estimated it at 2.5 million because they got better at estimating it. But because they got better at estimating it, that means 1.5 million people were fictionally murdered. He's an idiot, and that's how he tries to attack capitalism, through means like that. That's just a taste of how ridiculous this person is. Anyways, so that should be it for me today, guys. Again, if you like the channel, drop a like on the video, subscribe, leave a comment, and if you live in the city of Calgary, guys, sign up and get a Sonia Sharp for Mayor lawn sign. We are trying to box out all of the also-ran fake conservatives trying to run for office early so we can actually have a conservative running for mayor who can actually win, and that would be Sonia Sharp. Jeff Davison, Jeremy Farkas, complete hacks, ignore them. Sonia Sharp is the only person I will accept currently in this race to become mayor. Anyways, that's it for me today, guys. See you later.